Joe Biden will become the next president of the United States of America, replacing Donald J. Trump, whose tumultuous presidency came to an end thanks to a resounding vote of no confidence handed over by more than 80 million Americans. The Capitol is alive. The crowd, keenly vetted and selected, is fired up. The family, friends, associates, servicemen and women, you name it, have begun arriving at the United States Capitol. Security is very tight at this Capitol, which has been closed off to the public following unrest instigated by the outgoing President Donald Trump. Now, for the next 4 hours, we will be live from the U.S. Capitol, taking you through this very important historical event, the inauguration and swearing in of Joe Biden as the 46th President of the United States. I am Akisa Wandera. I'll be taking you through the program. Also, in this broadcast, my colleague Ken Mijungu will be joining us from here in studio, and he will have a standby panel to dissect the inauguration speech. What is in it for the region? And for Kenya specifically, what is Joe Biden's economic agenda, his foreign policy agenda? We'll find out right after the main event with Ken Mijungu and that panel. Also with us at the Harambee House is Michelle Ngele, and from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Emmanuel To will be giving us an update from that. Remember, Kyle McCarter, the U.S. ambassador to Kenya, resigned from his role. We'll look back at his term and why a democratic government may not favor his continuous stay. In Washington, D.C. is former presidential candidate Japheth Kaluyu. He'll also be joining us. VOA correspondent Catherine Gibson is also here with us. And in studio, we'll be speaking to Professor Noah Midamba. He is the Vice Chancellor of the KCA University, as well as Professor of Defense and Foreign Policy. A lot is happening. We'll be trying to give you all the latest updates on what is going on at the U.S. and, of course, giving it a Kenyan context, what does this mean for us? And perhaps let's just go back a little bit, see what is happening currently at the Capitol. VIPs already making their way to the Capitol. We understand the Obamas, Barack Obama and his wife, former First Lady Michelle Obama, have made way to the Capitol. And of course, we will be witnessing crowds of about 1,000 owing to two things. One, COVID-19 that has claimed 400,000 lives of people in America. And two, a domestic terror alert after the insurrection at the Capitol on the 6th of January. A lot of fears and security has been beefed up in this institution or at this institution owing to the riots that turned violent after rioters, tried to overturn the defeat of former President Donald J. Trump. But first, we have seen Donald Trump speak about a few ago, his final speech just before he, his final speech after he left the White House for the final time, being carried in the Air Force One, that then did make a turn to carry Joe Biden, who'll be making his way to the Capitol for his swearing in. In a bit, I'll also be taking you through what do we expect, what is part of his first agenda, what are some of the activities in line with traditions of the U.S. that will be lined up for you. But of course, Ken Mijungu, as I mentioned, will be coming in also later with a panel to dissect this speech that is really awaited for. It is equipped that perhaps it would be about 20-minute speech. It's a matter of wait and see. Let's see how long he can go. But Ken, looking at President Trump, speaking, doing his final speech, a chaotic man to the very end, as a lot of analysts have described it. He has lived up to his character to his very end, trying to outline some of the things that he thinks he did well and telling the people of America, make sure they do not overturn my gains. What did you think about his final? What are some of the highlights of his final address to the people of America?
I think most important is that President Trump deliberately refused to mention Joe Biden But as always, his speech was littered with a lot of misinformation, something that has been characteristic of his term as president for the last 4 years. In fact, if you look at what the media has been reporting, they have actually outlined about 36,000 misinformation that Trump has either tweeted out or even spoken about. So this speech was a goodbye, see you later speech, because he also mentioned that this could just be the beginning and not the end, something that he's mentioned previously. But most important is that Trump acknowledged that there will be a new sheriff in town, and as he left, a crowd of his supporters was still behind him. You saw at the airbase how many people were still there to listen to President Trump, and of course he leaves now, but we did not fail to realize that he made good his promise that he's not going to attend the inauguration of his successor, which is something that is untraditional in America, Kisa, because really all the presidents, if you look at the crowd that has just arrived at Capitol, all the VVIPs, President Barack Obama, George Bush, Clinton, they're all there. So it was incumbent upon the outgoing president also to attend, but he said he's not going to attend. But we know the Vice President Pence is attending. But for me, the highlight of his speech would be that we know that from morning he rejected a written speech. He decided to go off script completely, and he did not mention Biden by name. And most important for me, he says that it's a new beginning, which is questionable again, because what beginning is this? Remember, Senate impeached him twice, and that has ramification and has implication, Akisa. So these are some of the things that we'll be looking at when we sit later with the panel to look at exactly what Biden will say. And remember, when Biden was asked at a press conference what he feels about President Trump not attending, remember what he said. In a nutshell, he said it's good riddance. I'm glad. His expectations of Trump just went lower when Trump said that he will not be attending the inauguration ceremony. So his expectation of President Trump went even lower. I don't know if there was a bar, but it went really lower after that. So those are some of the things we'll be looking at later, Akisa.
And definitely, we had President Trump say that he will be back in some form. And already a lot of people asking, what form would this be? But of course, Kenmi Jungu, he of speeches, will be continuing to analyze all these speeches with the panelists that we will be telling you about shortly. But let me just take you through what we expect today. They have already dispensed with the church service, and they're on their way now to Washington, D.C. Capitol. The swearing in, the inauguration ceremony, and his address are expected to come up next. VIPs already making their way. We expect former presidents and their spouses to also make their way to the U.S. Capitol. And of course, I mentioned earlier, a crowd of 1,000 people is what we are expecting here. Once again, unheard of at different times, and they had to make do with this. As per tradition, about 200,000 people attend this. The national anthem will be done by singer Lady Gaga, and of course there will be a host of performances. The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, as per tradition, is expected to administer the oath of office for Joe Biden, and that is John Roberts. Swearing in, the Vice President will be Justice Sonoya Sotomayor, the first Latina member of the Supreme Court. And of course, it will be very good to indicate that this team is a team of many firsts, as we'll be hearing from a lot of our analysts. Harris himself is the first black woman, the first black woman, the first South Asian American woman to be sworn in as vice president. And of course, they will later on, after they're sworn in, they will participate in a pass-in review with members of the military on the east front of the Capitol in the presence of representatives. America is big on traditions, so we expect to see a lot of that today. So then after that, they will be heading to the Arlington Cemetery visit, where President Joe Biden, of course, that is after he's been sworn in, will lay a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier. And Arlington, I should mention, is arguably one of the best-known military sites in America, designed to honor men and women in uniform who paid the ultimate sacrifice of their lives for the country. And of course, he will be accompanied by Vice President Kamala Harris, as well as former presidents Barack Obama, George W. Bush, Bill Clinton, as well as their spouses. And thereafter, we expect the Celebrating America show at the Lincoln Memorial. Remember, in normal circumstances, we would expect the inaugural ball, but given that we are dealing with very different times, the inaugural ball was cancelled. Instead, there will be a virtual parade across America. The traditional inaugural ball was cancelled, and instead the star-studded television event dubbed Celebrating America will be broadcasted and hosted by Academy Award-winning actor Tom Hanks, and later on, of course, fireworks. These are just some of the events we expect, and we will be bringing to you live here on KTN News. Stick with us. Not only are we monitoring what is happening at the U.S., giving you blow-by-blow accounts of it all, we're really also trying to bring you the Kenyan context. I keep struggling with that word. I don't know why today. We're bringing you this. And just taking a look at what will some of the Biden policies mean. We expect later on I'll be telling you about the day one agenda of Joe Biden. So we'll be seeing what will this mean for us. But let's link up with our reporters. Emmanuel Toys at Harambee Avenue. A lot of decisions are taken from this point, but let's also link up with our reporters here. What they have to say. Remember, Michelle Ngele will also be joining us later with an interview with Nakia White, a foreign policy expert as well. But let's speak to Emmanuel Toh. Very good evening. Good to see you, Emmanuel. A lot of anticipation and all eyes are in the U.S. There are much expectations from here in Kenya.
Well, thank you very much, Akisa. It is a very historic day for the United States of America, and of course Kenya by extension, because U.S. and Kenya have had some bilateral relationships that span into very many aspects, including trade, a lot of issues, of course, fight against corruption, and of course security. And here at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs area, here along the Harambee Avenue, we are here to establish whether we could speak to some of the officials of the ministry, just to know why and what will be happening since the now former, Kyle McCarter, who is now the former ambassador of the United States to Kenya, after he resigned. Today was his last day in office, after he said that he will be going out after the president, the now outgoing President Donald Trump, just left office. And we're expecting to see a lot of activities. But as you can see, it is a very calm evening. There are no activities. Normally we'll see some activities, some of the dignitaries just making sure that they are part of that historic event that will be happening, the 46th inauguration, the inauguration of the 46th president of the United States of America. And if I could just mention, the U.S., the now outgoing U.S. ambassador to Kenya, Kyle McCarter, served in different capacities before. He was the senator for Illinois some time back, and we'll be moving to other issues and just giving you a picture of what will be happening in other parts of the country. We'll be taking you over to CNN Live for more updates. Over to you.